10 people who survived the impossible. It's always been fascinating to read about heroes in fiction who've managed to survive all kinds of monsters. Well, turns out there are some very real heroes out there who've managed to survive the monsters of starvation, dehydration, and icy cold water. In today's video, we're going to tell you about 10 people who survived the impossible. These people stared death right in the face and showed it who's boss. So stick around, because you might just learn something important. Number 1, back to life from a frozen grave. Back in May 2000, an orthopedic surgeon in training, Dr. Anna Begenholm, was skiing on a trail outside Narvik. Everything was going smooth until she lost her balance and fell headfirst into the icy river. But that wasn't the worst of it. Her body and head became stuck under a thick ice. She would have suffocated to death, but she managed to find an air pocket where she could keep breathing. The 29-year-old kept trying to free herself for 40 minutes, but to no avail. Naturally, hypothermia came for her. Luckily, before she could pass on to the other side, Anna's companions came looking for her. However, this was after 40 minutes, and her body temperature had already dropped to 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Her vital signs were so low that she was considered clinically dead. But she was taken into the care of the most excellent doctors, who were able to revive her by pumping warm blood through her body. And after rehabilitation rounds for months, she was back on her feet, except for some tingling sensation in her hands. Number 2, surviving an airplane crash. There are a lot of people who've survived some nasty air crashes, but what makes this case so special is that our special survivor fell out of an exploding air crash and lived to tell the tale. The 22-year-old flight attendant was aboard the Yugoslav airline destined to Belgrade from Copenhagen. As the airplane was making its journey over the Czech Republic, it exploded, hurling Vesna Vovojic 33,000 feet through the air. Rescuers found her buried under some wreckage with her stilettos off. She had sustained massive injuries, including severe blood loss, 3 broken vertebrae, and a fractured skull. Still, despite the injuries, Vovojic survived and got her name in the Book of Guinness World of Records for surviving the longest fall without a parachute. Number 3, 42 days without. It's hard to imagine anyone going without food for more than half a day, but Helen Klaben has some tough skin because she was able to live without food for more than 42 days. She was flying with an amateur pilot to Seattle from Fairbanks to save up on money. However, her mistake cost her dearly as her plane crashed in a snowstorm somewhere in the Canadian wilderness. The pilot, as well as the only passenger on board the plane, suffered some broken bones, but they were alive for the most part. They may have been granted life, but they had no means to sustain it. Their food supply consisted of 4 cans of sardines, 2 cans of fruit cocktail, 2 cans of tuna, and a bottle of vitamin pills. Not to mention the temperature dropped as low as -42. After a week, their food resources ran out, and they were forced to have snow for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The good news is that they had enough body fat to keep them alive for 42 days until authorities could find them. Number 4, surviving on bat blood. We've talked about the people who had nothing to eat for 42 days, but for one guy, survival was not possible without resorting to bat blood. Marathon des Sables is a 6-day marathon running through the Sahara Desert. The toughest athletic event ever, and back in 1994, one Italian pentathlete, the true danger of the 155-mile race in the glaring sun. During the marathon, Mauro Presperi was forced to take shelter by an 8-hour sandstorm. However, the next morning he discovered he was totally lost. With only half a bottle left, he resorted to drinking his own urine, and then drinking the bat blood as he ventured into a Muslim shrine. He ended up cutting the heads off 20 bats and sucking their blood. Help didn't arrive for 3 days, but he kept on walking before he discovered an oasis and met some shepherds who were able to call upon some rescuers. Number 5, surviving 4 months in the ocean. You've heard of someone stranded in the desert in the snow. Now let's listen to some survival stories in the water. Back in November 1942, Ben Lomond, a British merchant ship, left Cape Town for a journey to Paramino in Dutch Guiana. However, just when the ship was 750 miles off the South American coast, a German U-boat ended up sinking in the ocean. The only survivor was 24-year-old Chinese seaman Poon Lim. He managed to escape drowning and found refuge on one of the ship's rafts. And it seemed like luck was on his side because he was able to find some cans of food and a tank of water as well. His resources and some fishing were able to help him survive 133 days at sea. Lim's survival is in fact the longest one at sea ever. Number 6, amputated one's own hand. Do you remember the movie 127 Hours? Well, it really did happen to 27-year-old Aaron Ralston. He was climbing in Utah's Blue John Canyon when an 800-pound boulder came on him, crushing his right hand in the process. His multiple attempts to get the boulder free yielded no results, and in the end, he had no choice but to amputate his own hand. He used a knife to cut through all the nerves and bones, and it was 100 times worse than any pain he's felt. After making the makeshift amputation, he was able to climb out of place and went on to tell his story to the world. Number 7. Surviving a year at water. Jose Salvador Alvarenga is a long name, but it's one you should remember. Back in 2012, Jose was carrying on with fishing as usual when things went awry. A storm hit, and though his ship didn't sink, unlike Lim's, it ended up off course for an entire year. Jose survived the grueling time period by hunting for fish, turtles, and birds. As for water, he was forced to drink his own urine and some animal blood. Accompanying him on the ship was Ezequiel Cordoba, who unfortunately did not survive the journey. However, Cordoba's family thinks that Jose ate his shipmate to survive. Number 8. Surviving inside a volcano. Next, meet Michael Benson, the man who spent 2 days inside an active volcano. It wasn't Michael's intended destination. He just managed to get stuck there after his helicopter crashed. Rescue forces sent out choppers to search and rescue, who managed to find Michael. It seemed like the rescue came just in time, because according to Michael, he had a limit at that moment with no food or water, and sleepless nights had knocked the wind out of him. At one point, he even managed to see the Hawaiian fire goddess Pel. This man survived a literal hellhole and lived to tell the tale. Number 9. Surviving Everest. On May 10, 1996, Mount Everest faced a heavy blizzard that meant death for the climbers on the north and south faces. 8 climbers in total lost their lives during the event, but the dangers of the mountain were not able to get to one man, Beck Weathers. He was part of a group of 8 climbers and 1 guide. He didn't make it to the top, but rather found himself trapped at an altitude of 27,000 feet. It didn't look good for Beck, and in his last moments, as hypothermia enveloped him, he welcomed death. His companions chose to make him comfortable so he could pass away peacefully. But guess what? It didn't look like Beck was passing away anytime soon, because the next morning, he was perfectly alive. Beck was eventually escorted off the mountain and provided with necessary medical care. He lost his right hand and fingers on his left hand. Number 10. Surviving 2 nuclear attacks. While thousands died from US nuclear attacks on Japan, Satomi Yamaguchi didn't. He's the man to survive 2 nuclear blasts. At 8:15 on August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi was 2 miles away from Hiroshima when the bomb dropped. He made his way through the destruction to catch a train to Nagasaki, only to experience a second atomic bomb. Obviously, the radiation took its toll as Yamaguchi suffered from festering wounds and chronic vomiting. But he eventually got better and died at the age of 93. Alright, that's a wrap for today. Which of these stories horrified you the most? Let us know all your thoughts in the comments section below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more videos. Bye now.